All right, guys, what is up? This is the Will to Fight podcast, right? So why do we show up here? We're constantly looking for things that help forge us and move us in the right direction. And one of the closing statements with this next guest is anything is possible. And going through these moments and going through adversity and challenges in our lives push us to find out more about ourselves than we ever knew possible. That's why we're here. That's why I show up here. That's why I bring these guests on. And my next guest, Aaron Hale, which served in the military as an EOD technician, went overseas and when it got into an incident. And I am excited for you guys to get to know him, to listen to his journey, and really find out what came out of that for him now today. It's pretty exciting. So looking forward to you guys checking out this episode. Right now, we're making a huge shift. And if you haven't seen it already, Adaptive X has always been an apparel line that I've thought about, conceptualized, and lived building in my mind over time, working with multiple companies throughout my career, working with companies like Patagonia, Arc'teryx, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And I've seen how these things develop over time. And I've always seen gaps in the industry from a low-vis apparel perspective. So I wanted to put my heart and soul in what you now see today. Adaptive is this started a long time in my career saying, like, this is what we can do better. This is what I want apparel to be. And, like, I live that out each and every day. What we wear on a daily basis is so important. It's like we can have the right mindset, we can have the right training, and then layering that equipment into our lifestyle is so important. Having the right stuff to carry, having the right equipment in your car or wherever you're traveling to be prepared can set you up for success. So one of the big shifts is that we have now reconsolidated everything under the Dynamis roof, and it's going to be better for everybody involved, all of our customers that have been supporting us for a long time, guys that are military, law enforcement, that are investing in our gear and equipment. It's just going to help us refine to give you a better product. So if you haven't already, make sure you go to crusheverything.com, check out the Adaptive X apparel line that we've created over a long period and it's continuing to evolve each and every day. Even right on the table right now, we have our patent pending IWS system, which integrates what you're carrying on a daily basis into your jeans, into your pants, into your shorts, so that you have 100% retention. And essentially what you can do is adapt from IWS to in the waistband. So IWB, in my opinion, my mission is to make IWB obsolete and to completely make it go away. I look at IWB in the waistband with the clip, relying on a belt as old school. And I want to be able to change the industry to bring it up to a standard where everything is IWS. Everything you carry is IWS. There's no metal. There's no clips. There's nothing to get hung up on. A clean draw every single time. And you have 100% guaranteed retention no matter what you're doing, whether you're dynamic, whether you're fighting. It does not matter. It is in there and not going anywhere. And I guarantee that 100%. Or you guys, I'll give you your money back on the product that you buy from us. So IWS, Integrated Waistband System, is a patent pending product that we sell that gives you guys the ability to carry with 100% confidence that whatever tool you're carrying is going to be there when you need it. So again, go to crusheverything.com and check that out. All right, this podcast is sponsored by Redcon One. And as always, these guys are continually evolving, continually upgrading their quality, continually upgrading everything that they're putting into it. And today's product that I want to highlight is Mental Trigger. You're probably going to hear me talk about this again because we all have days that we're dragging ass. And honestly, sometimes you can use Total War, but when you're looking for something with a little bit more focus, and look, I'm not big into the whole stimulant thing either. I'm not out there pumping like, hey guys, you take all this stimulants. Like I stopped drinking. I don't take any drugs. At the end of the day, when I take something, it's very pointed. And yes, I drink probably more coffee than I should. But when you're looking for that pick-me-up with caffeine and a little bit of stimulant in it, this Mental Trigger actually works really, really well. And it's clean. It gets you to be more aware, but it's not like an overwhelming or anxiety-provoking feeling. And I've loved using it very strategically throughout the week. When I need a little pick-me-up or I know I'm going to be late in the office, Mental Trigger is definitely a product that I've found that is definitely helpful. So check that out. And their whole line of products is super high quality. I take the isolate every single day. I take the isolate every single morning. It's a super high quality protein that I put in my shake. So depending on whether I'm putting berries in there, bananas, whatever the flavor is, it kind of keeps it that flavor, whether I use vanilla or another variation of one of their flavors. But go check it out, redcon1.com. Make sure you guys use code DOM, D-O-M, to save 20% on all your purchases. And this podcast is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you guys and listening to Aaron's story. Here we go. We are all going to have to fight. I don't care if it's mentally, physically, or spiritually. We are all going to have to fight for something in our lives. My goal is to help you forge your will to fight, to become the best that you can possibly be for yourself, your family, and everybody else around you. I'm Dom Raso. Welcome to the Will to Fight podcast. All right, guys, I am so excited to bring this guest on today. His name's Aaron Hale, and he spent 12 years in the military. He started as a cook, but his journey along the way took him to the point where he ended up going into EOD. And I've worked with multiple EOD guys throughout my career, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for them, what they have to do, their risk, their job. You know, they go into it knowing the risk. And I also have seen a lot of these scenarios that guys have to go through. So I have ultimate respect. If there's anybody that I go shoulder to shoulder with overseas, it's a guy that's been in this field. And if you guys don't know, EOD stands for Explosive Ordnance Disposal. And, you know, that's a mouthful, but what it is essentially guys go and figure out how to protect guys like me from getting into certain situations, or just everybody in general that are traveling on roads or traveling into villages or going into areas where they have a higher risk to be able to go into a threat that could end up killing them. And a lot of the times, most of the times, it's explosives. So Aaron has a mission that he's been on. He was in a situation, in a scenario overseas in 2011, and I'm excited for him to explain that to you, to go down this road. I'm excited to get you guys to know more about Aaron and his journey along that path. So Aaron, we're just going to get right to it, man. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you being on here.
Dom, thanks for inviting me. It's a real honor to be on the show with you.
So, you know, I've seen a little bit about your background, and first I was listening and it said you were in the Navy. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I started off as a Navy cook in '99. And I tell people I switched from Navy cook to Army bomb squad because, after I got my first confirmed kill with an egg roll, I wanted to start saving lives instead.
That's awesome, and I really the transition was interesting. You know, to watch you go from that to going into EOD. First of all, what drove you to go to be a cook in the Navy? What led you to that journey? Because actually, I don't think if I wasn't a SEAL, I always looked at Steven Seagal as one of those badasses. I was like, I could totally be a cook. I'd be the baddest cook on the ship, you know. But what drove you to be a cook?
It was a gradual evolution. I when I joined the Navy, I'd spent a couple semesters gaining like 50, my freshman 50 in college, and I really didn't have much direction, didn't have a goal, didn't have a whole lot of ambition. You know, I was actually maybe cursed a little bit with just enough natural ability to never get that real work ethic down. So I got decent grades in high school and even in college when I showed up. But I had athletic ability, all that kind of stuff. But it catches up to you, and everybody. Eventually, if you're not working hard, if you're not doing everything you can to be better and get better, the life just catches up and then passes you by. And that's kind of what happened to me in college. So at some point I realized that I needed to, get my act together. And that's when I joined the Navy. Always loved cooking. It's always been a passion of mine. So I figured I would, find that course. I was originally going to become a chef. I wanted to go to culinary school. However, I'd kind of burned up that tuition money and needed to find something else. And that's when I decided I was going to get the GI Bill. And actually joining the military was really, at the beginning, it was just completely, selfish act. I wanted the discipline. I wanted, you know, the, everything that comes, the benefits of the military, personal as well as financial, of course, the GI Bill. And I decided I was going to become a cook in the Navy, and get that OJT and get to see the world at the same time. And quickly was put into leadership role after leadership role. I was promoted pretty quickly, and within a couple of years, I was cooking for the commander of the Sixth Fleet in Gaeta, Italy. So for a few years, I was cruising around the Med, pulling into foreign port after foreign port, throwing up the flag and throwing receptions for dignitaries and royalty sometimes, and getting to see Europe and parts of Northern Africa, and it was incredible. It's definitely a hardship duty, but
It sounds
like
amazing.
I said I joined in '99, but by about then it was 2004, and of course the World Trade Center happened. Iraq was kicking off. We were fighting two wars before I knew it, and I realized that I'd fallen in love with the service, and I wanted to do something a little more for my troops, for the cause, and a little bit less about me. And while I still love cooking, I wanted to do something else. And I volunteered to become an individual augmentee. The Air Force and Navy piecemeal teams, they just grab they're like billets that just put a temporary fill over on the battlefield. So I went from cooking for the admiral and 25, 30 of his staff to cooking for 500, 600, 700 NATO troops in Farah, Afghanistan, while running an army chow hall. It was a huge switch, but it was definitely, to me, it felt more fulfilling. And while I was there, I met some EOD technicians. I'd never even been introduced to that field before, didn't know it existed. And I talked to these EOD techs, and I learned all about, the job they did, this life-saving work they were doing on the battlefield and at home. EOD technicians, besides, doing unexploded ordnance on the battlefield and IEDs, they also support Secret Service missions. Anywhere a protectee goes, there's an EOD team with them. And we also support stateside response missions. So, the kids are cleaning out grandpa's attic and find a souvenir from Korea. They call the police, and the police call EOD. Yep. So, besides that, it was the brotherhood. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, having been in the teams. It's a tight-knit community, EOD. We take care of each other. We all go to the same school for every branch, so we all speak the same language. And I, coming from the Navy and going Army, and then going straight into, I didn't do basic training in the Army. I did an abridged version, a gentleman's course called a Warrior Transition Course. It was kind of a pilot program. But there's less of the indoctrination and more of just the skills aspect. So I wasn't turned into a soldier, and then I was given the skills of a soldier, and then I was quickly sent to EOD school. So I consider myself more of an EOD technician than I think like regular Army. No, I love the Army. I love the Navy. I love them both. But at heart, I'm an EOD tech, if that makes
That's
sense.
yeah,
And
that's awesome. I mean, so right from the beginning, you saying like, "Hey," I stuck out to me so far where you said, if you don't get your act together, or if you don't engage in a way with life, it's going to pass you by. If you don't push, or the other thing also that came out very clearly, you were like, hey, I'm constantly trying to make myself better. I'm constantly trying to improve. But that whole journey you just took us through is a whole progression of just saying, hey, I'm going to go in, I'm going to go in to go to school and I'm going to get this skill done. But then you just progressed and progressed and progressed. And even, cruising around the Med sounds amazing. That sounds like an amazing trip, and being a part of that. And then you getting to the point where, what was the switch for you? I know, and I totally understand the brotherhood. I totally understand the draw, because I saw that too when I saw Special Forces operations. Is like, what was one of the main things that really drove you to say, I'm going to make this shift from kind of having, for lack of a better term, a pretty good job, a pretty good, duty that you were accomplishing, progressing throughout that. What made you say, hey, I'm going to go volunteer to do something that is going to put me in harm's way a little bit more? What was that major shift for you?
like I said, it's a constant evolution. We're always changing. How quickly we affect our own change and the change around us is up to us, but some of that it just isn't. Sometimes there are catalysts that affect our own lives. Of course, it was my decision to be a terrible student in college, and when I got invited to leave the university, and it was kind of it was a mutual thing. I didn't really want to go back. I wasn't doing anything except drinking beer and eating pizza. Uh, but it was getting that letter from the bursar, or the administration that said, don't come back. In fact, I couldn't. I was going to school in Ohio, and it said I couldn't attend another Ohio university, like a state school, for 5 years, because I'd gotten kicked out of one of them. And that is, that's a kick in the ass.
Yeah.
That, what a terrible feeling. And I knew that I had to change somehow. I needed to do something.
So that
So,
pushed you.
uh, and, and I realized that I didn't have the discipline to do what needed to be done. And that's why I started looking to the military. Now, I picked a job that I thought would be safe, being a cook on a ship. And of course, the joke is, Navy ships are never more than a mile away from land. Just sometimes it's straight down. But but still, I picked one of the safer career paths. It wasn't until when I was watching these Aegis destroyers, cruisers, firing off the Tomahawks and I was watching from the deck of our ship to other ships, and I was watching these, when Bush gave the ultimatum, and it was like 8 p.m. or whatever it was. The chief of staff, and I was serving him coffee. He goes, "Hey, take a look with me," and we stepped outside, and I'm watching these rockets take off, and then he says, "All right, come on back inside." And we turned on CNN, and we watched them land. I thought, man, this is real.
Jeez,
Uh,
that's cool.
yeah. So I by then I'd caught that sense of duty, honor, pride in what I was really doing, and it became more and more about the service and less about me. I mean, I was growing as a person. I was evolving. I was becoming a better me. But I knew I could do more, and that's when I volunteered to deploy to. I volunteered to go into harm's way. Only thing was, they sent me to Farah, Afghanistan, which is the middle of nowhere, southwest Afghanistan. Even the Taliban don't want it. So for literally an entire year, nothing happened. I just cooked, and I was out in the desert this time. I knew I was closer. I was on the right course. And when I met the EOD technicians, it's something just clicked. I knew this is what I was meant to do. Why I volunteered to come out here was to meet these guys and find a new career path. So little things and turn into bigger things, and there are certain catalysts along our lives that just take us on these. It's taken me certainly on an interesting, windy career path.
Yeah, I love listening to that journey though, because every detail of it, even that moment that you had, serving the chief of staff coffee, like that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a pretty cool moment. Not everybody is going to be able to connect with. And there was things like that for us overseas where we would go do something, get back from the op, turn on the news and be like, everybody would be trying to figure out what happened and who did what. And we'd just be sitting there laughing, like watching it unfold on the news and people not know what's going on. But that's a cool moment and understanding. And you brought up the word that I always ask about, and that's honor. And I know watching your journey now that there's a lot of meaning in your life, and I know honor is a part of that. So today, with where you stand, what does honor mean to you today?
To me, honor means standing by your principles. It means to protect those people and beliefs that you hold. It means, it means to be bigger than just you.
Standing by your principles. I love that. That's a huge part of it too. So you got into EOD, you had this sense of purpose, you got this changing shift in your journey, knowing like, hey, I'm going to do more. And everything you've explained has been a progression from, being in school, getting that kick in the butt to say, now I'm going to go here. Now I'm in EOD. Now you're serving with a bunch of guys in this tight knit crew, and you're overseas. How did that lead up to the point where you had that happen to you? Like what was your journey? How long did you go through that journey? And what was your progression like when you got into when the incident happened? What was that? Take us up to that point. And then I want to go into your Will to Fight story. I want to talk about a couple of things before that, but I want to hear your progression throughout your EOD career.
Well, like I said, once I joined the Army, they sent me to this warrior transition course, which were full of prior service. So some of them are former soldiers that just been out too long and needed retraining to come back in. Others were for like me, other branches, Air Force, Marines, and Navy. And we got all the basic rifle course and land nav and all that kind of stuff. And then once I graduated that, learned how to march in a square again. They sent me to Army's Phase 1 for EOD, which used to be at Redstone. And Phase 1 is a 10-week preschool. That's the thing about EOD is that there's so much knowledge. It's such a technical job.
Yeah,
that
100%.
It's 10 weeks just to learn how to speak the language before going to NAV school, EOD, Navy run joint military school at Eglin Air Force Base. And that's 43 weeks long. And even after the 43 weeks, basically after an entire year of learning how to be, training as an EOD tech, the badge is still probationary. And, upon graduation, they tell you, you just learned how to learn how to be EOD. And again, I know that's the same way in the teams. You don't even you guys don't even get your trident till after you reach the, your unit. We are, at least in the Army, we were pinned on our crab at EOD school, but one mistake one slip up at our first unit, that probationary crab goes away.
Did you have a high attrition? Was there a pretty high attrition in your class?
It is, but it's not as physically demanding as other schools. It is there's of course right off the bat, before you're even admitted to the school, you have to take a bomb suit and a chem suit test. So in the bomb suit, you basically do it's 45-minute workout in the bomb suit, while also being subjected to knowledge-based, memory-based
Yes.
questions. So
That's cool.
the whole idea is, can you keep your mental acuity, mental agility while just getting smoked? And then after the bomb suit test, you get into MOP 4, gas mask, rubber boots, the whole nine, and you do it all over again.
That's awesome. That sounds like the perfect challenge right up my alley. Sounds like the program that we're doing now.
I've administered since then. I've administered the test, and I've seen some really gung ho guys. Just full of pins and badges on their chest and awards. Guys that gone through Pathfinder and Ranger and schools and all that, and they take that and maybe obviously I saw a guy 35 seconds after starting in the MOP suit rip his gas mask off and say, I couldn't breathe. No, you couldn't stay calm. You couldn't, you panicked. And they don't get admitted to the school.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you went into that, because I always talk to people, like when you're going through physical exertion, I always tell people when they work out, a lot of people in the CrossFit culture, they'll like throw themselves on the ground afterwards and just lay there. And I always say, I'm like, look, you just went through all that. You build up. It's like, now do something with it. Now go do a fine motor skill movement. Now do a math problem, do some problem solving, the mental acuity that you were talking about, because that's really where it exposes you in those moments to make those critical decisions when the environment's not perfect, because that's when you're going to have to make them. So that's really cool. That's actually inspired me. I might go make some challenges in our workout program after this. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, I remember my test. An EOD technician put me in the bomb suit and gave me a 155 and said, okay, don't let this touch the ground. All right, follow me. And we went up some stairs and we down some stairs. We walked up and down the halls, and we went outside. And I remember it was just an exercise carrying this thing around. And at first I'd put it over my shoulder, and he goes, no, like a baby, cradle it. Oh my gosh. So
if you guys don't know,
I'm getting so burned.
5 rounds, huge.
Yeah. And we get outside to the parking lot, and he says, hold on, just hold it there. And then he walks about 50 yards away. He says, all right, to me. And as I'm cradling this thing and walking this 50 yards, I'm so burnt. And I could just feel my muscles, failing. And it goes from, up by my shoulders to my elbows. And then I've got it cradled in my wrists. And then I've got it on my, supported by my hip, but I'm still walking. Finally, it's down, it's gone down to my knees. And and finally, I had this thing resting on, the toe of my boot. And I was basically pinned there. I'd still hadn't let it touch the ground. But I was about 10 yards away from this guy, and I couldn't move. And then he says, all right, you're done. I said, no, I can do this. No, you're done. The test is over. I said, I can do this. And he said, no, you don't understand me. You passed. All I needed to know is that you weren't going to quit.
Awesome. I love that.
And then from there, once you pass that, it's the willpower and stamina, then it's, do you have the mental fortitude to take to cram all this knowledge into your head, We were taking on average an EOD student gets tested on material every 2 to 3 days. There's a written or practical test every 2 or 3 days, and of course, if you fail once, you can take it a second time. If you fail the second time, you get rolled back. If you fail a third time, you're gone. So that's where the attrition happens. These you can't take any of the materials home to study. So you got to study hall for after school, and then you gotta lock this information in. You got to ask questions when you're able, and then when test time comes, you got to pass or and move on, or the school moves on without you.
That's really cool. That's awesome. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that are going to listen to this too. That I always get a lot of questions about EOD and special warfare and guys wanting to go into this community. So it's awesome to hear you break that down, and it's actually inspired. It's making me want to go hit the gym and do some mental acuity stuff. But so you went through selection and training, and you have this whole progression going on. Obviously,
I graduated, and I was able to keep my rank from the Navy to the Army, so I came in as a sergeant.
That's cool.
It's cool in one sense that I didn't lose my time and rank and all that from the Navy to the Army. What was difficult though is that I was immediately expected to be an Army leader, and two different animals. So I had to hit the ground running, which means I had to put out more effort than the already amazing sergeants around me, because I had to catch up and I had to keep up. And of course, as soon as you reach your unit, you start training. The pinnacle of EOD is becoming a team leader. It's around E5, E6. Before you become a team leader, you're a team member. And EOD teams run generally in the Army. It's 3-person teams. So each team member supports the team leader. The team leader is the one that actually goes down. Takes that long walk towards the item, the explosive device. Because that's the most experienced, the expert on the team. And then once you have proven yourself, you've served, or maybe you've gotten promoted out of that team leader position, you go into the higher echelons of support for the team. So in either direction, you're basically supporting the EOD team leader. Now, I'd come into the Army at the rank where I should be a team leader. So not only do I need to learn how to be a soldier and be a sergeant, but I got to learn how to be a team leader fast, and without having the benefit of the time as a team member. Now, I was stationed at Fort Drum, just 30 miles from the Canadian border, and we had to train for the deserts of Iraq and Afghanistan in 4 feet of snow, but it was sorry.
Yeah, no worries. That's you're probably hearing the jets in the background possibly, but I think that you were forced progression now. Now you're like, here, be a team leader, and it's one of the most coveted positions in both your ranks that you were in and our rank. When you're a team leader, it's like that's the pinnacle of your career. That's like the best spot to be in. So you got thrown into EOD right in one of the best spots that you could possibly be in. So after you leading that position and getting to that point, I want you to touch on, what you went through as much as possible. I know I talk all the time about the scenarios that I've been through in the past. And, sometimes it can be difficult to talk about. Sometimes it can be, the where I put myself and where I put my mind. But at the end of the day, go into it as much as you want. And I want to understand, I want the listeners to kind of understand what you had to deal with. But what I'm really looking forward to is kind of talking about your journey afterwards too. But I think it's important for them to have some context and then understanding where you are today, because that's the most exciting part, is the guy that I'm talking to now. And I want to just give them some, as much as you'll go into about what happened.
Yeah, soon after getting stationed in at Fort Drum, my company deployed to Iraq, and I was the third wheel, so to speak. I was a sergeant on a team of now 4, with 2 other team members and a staff sergeant as the team leader. And these guys had been clicking for a while. They've been together, working together for a while. It's a brand new, like I said, brand new soldier, brand new EOD tech, brand new sergeant. And I wasn't really fitting. I was doing my best to get up to speed. But one of the best things that could have happened was my first sergeant saw an opportunity, and they sent me to the Task Force Troy, and the sexy cell, which is counter explosives exploitation cell. And I did the triage, which is basically, it's the CSI side of EOD. And for our area of operation, the sexy cell, what it does is it takes all the evidence sent in from teams around the area and does analysis on it. The triage, what I was working on, I separated all the components, took photographs, and I would send evidence to, we had biometrics, chemical analysis, electronic analysis, all of that kind of stuff. So I got to learn exactly how all the alphabet soup guys wanted to see the evidence coming off the battlefield. CIA, FBI, ATF, DEA, they all wanted to see what was going on with the IEDs. And I was the one preparing the evidence. So it was an incredible learning experience for me in Iraq. And it better prepared me for evidence collection and all sorts of, basically it better prepared me to be a team leader when I finally got my own team. Unfortunately, there was a medical emergency back home, and I didn't spend my entire deployment in Iraq. But what I did was I redeployed back home. I was attached to another EOD company, and almost a year later, I was sent to Afghanistan. Now it's 2011, and by then I'd qualified as a team leader. I had my own team, and I was now in Afghanistan. This time I was in a pretty busy area of operation, not far from Kandahar and the Arghandab River Valley. And my team, my company, we were working very hard. We were constantly busy, very little downtime. And we were running what was basically almost everything we were doing. If it wasn't, a post-blast analysis, it was, we were running almost just one type of, responding to just one type of IED. It was a pressure plate with a jug and a 9-volt battery.
Yep.
So low tech, but so effective. And all they had to do, and they figured this out, all they had to do to defeat our metal detectors was offset the 9-volt battery. Just run the wire a little bit further off the side of the path, the road, and the thing was virtually undetectable. So we had a lot of dismount operations and a lot of walking. So we finally, we did get metal detectors with GPR, ground penetrating radar, and we were able to find these things a bit better. But unfortunately, I did do a lot of post-blast analysis after the thing went off. Pretty gruesome, pretty awful, terrible stuff, but it only hardened my resolve to get as many of these things off the battlefield as I could. And we were constantly, when we weren't on mission, we were training, we were preparing for the next one. And everybody was spun up most of the time. It was a tough deployment. I was.
You're actually making me reflect on one of the incidences that happened. My first deployment, it was 2003, 2004, and we had a whole convoy that was going in and out. We were doing presence patrols and going in and out of villages, and we had an incident where it was a long buildup, and I mean the buildup was kind of crazy how this happened, but we ended up having one vehicle in front of us that really shouldn't have been there because we were the point vehicle. We were the one that was always running lead. So my guys were running navigation. And being in that lead truck is like the whole time you're just like, when's it going to come? When's it going to come? When's it going to come? And this specific incident, we went out and the vehicle in front of us got hit, blew the whole back of the truck up. I got hit in the top of the head with the exhaust pipe, hit me. I didn't even know if it was us. It was so loud that it was like, what just happened? I did the whole like check. And when you're saying all that breakdown, I was actually thinking, because it was a double stack mine lineup in the road, that was just wide enough where the Humvee tracks were going to hit it. So I was wondering if that one, because we didn't really get much post-blast analysis. Our technology really wasn't as advanced as it was around 2011. They made big leaps and bounds from 2003 to 2011 of what they were understanding was going on. So you just made me reflect on that incident. But I was one where they had to extract guys, and a couple of guys got killed on that as well. So, I totally can appreciate all the intensity that goes into what you guys were doing on a consistent basis. And I can only imagine how many lives that you did save doing what you did.
Oh man, you're absolutely right. Iraq, the bomb makers. They were far more sophisticated. They were creative, and the ingenuity they put into both the manufacture of the IEDs and the placement of them. They were digging out, breaking up concrete and pouring new concrete to hide these things. Those EFPs. Oh my goodness, Iraq taught us a lot, and we had to learn fast. You're absolutely right.
Yep, 100%. So you got that whole. I'm sure you got a lot of reps in at that point, and then when you went out on your mission, that you ended up. How far along into your career were you when that happened? So 2011. When did you get there for that deployment?
I've been promoted to staff sergeant and placed in a team leader position. We've been running both response missions from the base, and we've been doing a lot of planned aerial insertions. So we'd load up 3 Chinooks with basically a walking circus of it was a movable feast of soldiers, and we because it was barely, I guess, less detectable than rolling a convoy through but we would insert with everything from FET teams, female engagement teams, to civil affairs and the whole nine, and just walk into a village with blankets and rice, and of course it would take this foot patrol of 80 or so to hours to get from the LZ into a village a mile away and back. But it had plenty of time for somebody to bury something along our way. But it's still, we were also losing a vehicle every other day. We were cutting new roads and laying down, the engineers were cutting roads in this area right through grape fields and poppy fields, and it would take them days to actually get triple compact the gravel. So of course there's just Afghan moon dust on our path. So these guys didn't even have to bury these IEDs. Sometimes they would just drop an IED and the dust would cover it up. So it became we were actually basically digging some of these holes for them. And
Crazy.
After time, of course, my team, we got really busy. We were not only doing the post-blast analysis, but we were picking up these IEDs, watching off of ISRs. These guys would just walk up, drop something in the road, and walk away.
Yeah, and obviously that journey of what you went through overseas and then where you are today, that's what's inspired me the most. And listening to what happened in that incident and leading up into that point in 2011, I think we all think about it. Even me, walking through door after door after door is like, when's it going to happen? When is the explosion going to go off? When's it going to happen again? When am I going to get hit? And you ended up going through that scenario on your own, right? And there's so many guys that go through stuff overseas. And one of the whole reasons I wanted to bring you on is just your journey of how you got to where you are today, because so many guys struggle and so many guys have a hard time shifting gears. And when you talk about the will to fight story, about what you went through and having that happen, I just want you to kind of take us through that a little bit and where it led you in that moment. And then I just saw you shift gears, man. You were like, that's it. I'm not going to be that guy that's sitting around. And that's where I was like, this guy is friggin' awesome. He says, you're just taking it on your own is to engage that will to fight. So can you just take us through a little bit of what happened in the beginning of it and kind of a little bit of that journey? Because there's a couple of main points I want to hit and kind of ask you some questions throughout that.
Well, of course, I didn't realize that I was preparing myself to be resilient. But every day on the battlefield, you got to wake up and realize it's going to get hard. Hardship's going to happen. I'm going to sweat. I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to be hungry, thirsty, and I'm going to have to go walk, possibly step on an IED. But I got to go make sure that nobody else, as many as I can save, I can get to before it gets to them. And so I can't worry about how bad it's going to suck. I got a job to do, and that's what we did. When about 8 months into the deployment, I was back off of my 2 weeks of R&R. I'd spent 2 weeks back home with my family. It was about this time of the year too. I got to see my family for Thanksgiving. Got to witness my son turn 1.
Awesome.
It was an awesome last page in the photo album. But I'd gotten back to Kandahar. My team picked me up in the Jerv, our armored truck, and we found a supply convoy to roll back out towards our fob. And along the way, a call came over the radio calling for EOD. A&P had found something in the road, and we needed EOD to take a look at it. So no time like the present. I tossed the luggage off of the robot, and tossed the robot out, and we got to work. It was all sorts of red flags on this one. For one, usually A&P, the Afghan police, they do location either by stepping on it, or they just tear it out of the ground and walk it to the ECP, walk it right to the gate. Like, look what I found. So it was a little fishy that they'd found something and left it, for us to come get. And then they were all standing like this. It was like a whole platoon of, it's like a whole company of police officers just standing around this thing, and nobody stepping on it. I just said, hey, would you guys clear out so I can get to work? And that was the other fishy thing, was that usually when you tell an Afghan to back off because I'm about to work on something that might explode, they take about 2 or 3 steps back and pull out their phone. And like, I can't wait to watch. I'm going to record this. This is going to be awesome.
Jeez.
These guys, it was like ninja vanished. They popped smoke. They were gone. I don't even know where they went. They went back beyond our security cordon. Like, wow, they finally started listening.
They knew.
Another red flag. Like, sirens should have been going off by then. I don't know. I can only speculate what happened there, but
yeah,
I did my job. I found the IED with the robot. I had the Afghan police, head honcho, the chief, with my laser pointer, just put a dot right on the thing, and I sent the robot down. My team member was controlling the thing and had the pressure plate separated, but couldn't get the jug out of the hard packed dirt. We could have just dropped a charge and called it a day. But like I said, I'm an evidence guy. I want to get to the bomb maker, so I want all the evidence I can get. And so I jumped out. I had my mine detector, and I had my evidence kit, and I started making my way towards the IED, about 20 or 30 meters from the original, the primary device. My metal detector started telling me something really important. I got at the exact same time, I got like the mule kick from hell. I got the ID went off, a secondary device that hadn't yet been detected, and I got punted into the sky. Landed on my knees and elbows. I was still conscious, but the lights had gone completely out. I thought my helmet had gotten pushed over my face. It was nighttime, but our EOD trucks have so many lights we could light up that sky. But it was pitch black. So I first did this functions check, wiggled fingers and toes and knees and elbows, and I was basically intact. So I reached up to grab my helmet and adjust it just to realize it was gone. And that's when I thought, shit, the Army's going to want that back.
Sorry, I've heard you say that before, and it's just one of those things where, of course, that would pop into your head.
Yeah, it's funny how those kind of things go through your mind. I really was thinking, yeah, I'm going to catch hell. But it was just like, you had Jason Redmond on before, and he said the same thing. It's like, he was, but he told his teammate, grab my helmet and my arm. In a few moments, my team dragged me back to the truck. The medic came running up from 300 meters away, huffing and puffing. He goes, "Man, I can't believe you made me run that far. I just had dinner. I'm sorry to ruin your night."
That's warriors being warriors in the worst moments. That's what we do. It's that dark humor that you have no choice but to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, I was asking my my teammate while the doc was cutting my uniform open to check me out. I was like, because I knew something was wrong. I mean, I was tasting blood in my mouth, the grit in between my teeth. I wasn't sure if that was the dirt that had gotten blasted in, or just maybe my teeth itself I was grinding on. And I asked one of my teammates, I asked him, "Chris, how's my face?" It just just his response, like, "I don't think you're gonna be modeling."
Oh man. Well, it sounds like you had a good group around you, man, and I know that in those moments, it's like you can sense that, like, hey, things are going to change, things are going to be different. But first of all, I've I've seen things and been there where situations have happened. And first of all, just thankful that you're here, right? And you're back. And I know things have adapted and changed over time, and you've had to make that shift. And that's really the moment. And even I was like, I'm tense listening to you, right? Because I understand those moments and what it's like. But being surrounded by the right people that can bring you back, to as much reality as possible, something to ground you in those moments is so freaking important. And, going through your head now and going through this journey that you've been on, I listen to you and talking about saying, hey, listen, at some point you knew you were going to deal with these challenges in life. How did it start kind of processing in your head? And I just want to really get into the shift that you made, saying like, look, I know there's going to be challenges I've got, but it sounded like at some point you were just like, I'm not going to be the guy that sits around and just deals with it. You were going to be proactive. And I felt that in you, and I see that in you today. And I just want to hear, I want our viewers to hear what it was that really made you take ownership in where you are today and shift gears from, you could have used that to every excuse in the book. You could have used it for whatever you wanted to, but here you are and you're crushing everything.
Well, first, on the battlefield, I didn't have time to worry about me. You know, once something like this happens, we've trained for these scenarios. I know that if the EOD team leader goes down, the team members, the first job they do is they clear a safe path up to the team leader so the medics can get to him. I was ambulatory, but I knew what my team was doing as soon as that blast happened. So I didn't want them coming into a danger area. I wasn't really thinking very clearly at the time, but I didn't want them coming into a hazardous zone. So I got up off my knees and I started walking towards the truck. Of course, I've been spun around and I didn't have any eyes now, so I had no idea where the truck was. But within moments, my team members had me and they were dragging me back towards the truck. And it's like I said, we didn't realize that we were going to need to be resilient. We just trained to prepare for it, and there was no time to worry about, oh God, what just happened? It was, this just happened, and here's the response. The situational awareness just kind of kicks in, and the training kicks in. A few days later, I was at Walter Reed, and then it was a different type of situation where there were doctors and nurses and Army representatives of paperwork, and there still wasn't time to worry about my situation. It was like they say, you shoot, move, communicate. I
Yep.
was just reacting, and I was doing my best to stay on top of the situation. But eventually, I did get the time to actually consider how my life had changed. And, of course, the demons try to get in, those what ifs, why me's. I was angry with myself. I was feeling guilty. I was embarrassed because I'd worked so hard to get to that team leader position. I'd made it to that pinnacle. We're the best fighting force on the planet, and EOD technicians are some of the the best at what we do in the world. And
100%.
there I was, having lost my eyes to one of the most simple IED for the simple circuit. I mean, it was, like I said, it's child's play, but it's so low tech that it gets past some of our highest technologies. There's just basic skills. So I couldn't blame anybody or anything, any piece of technology or anybody else around me. It was me versus the IED, and I failed. So those demons, were, just trying to wedge themselves in my mind and my thoughts. But, I realized that this life isn't just about me. Um, I'm still a soldier. I'm still EOD team leader until, they retire me. I'm still a father and a son. I still have responsibilities, and I need to live up to them. So I figured, if I was going to be a blind soldier, I was going to be the best damn blind soldier I could be. I climbed a mountain in Peru. I joined an old wounded veteran team up Mount Mariposa. It's about just shy of the same height as Kilimanjaro, but it was in the Andes. And during that time, when I said I was going to be I'm going to be the best blind soldier, the best blind guy I could be, I sought out other people who, I sought out mentors. I found, the only blind person ever climbed Everest was Eric Weinmeier, and he was the one leading this team of wounded veterans, and I sought him out. I climbed mountains with him.
What was the mountain? What was the mountain you guys climbed that you actually went up? Because you said you did 3 different peaks, right? Because I watched the video of you going up that. Which mountain was that?
That was in Colorado, and that was Cameron, Lincoln, and Democrat. All 14,000 nice. Foot or 14 plus peaks in Colorado.
That's what it
not
was.
Not far from Breckenridge, and that was in preparation cool. for Kilimanjaro.
Awesome.
This is almost 4 years later, and I'd managed to climb mountains. I was running marathons, whitewater kayaking, and I began my speaking career, and I was telling people all about resilience. I was talking about preparing for the hardships and having a better outlook on life, and not having excuses. And it was about 2 weeks before heading to Kilimanjaro when I contracted bacterial meningitis. Nice. The bomb blast had taken my eyes, but it also cracked my skull. And so I was leaking spinal fluid, and I had to it was leaking spinal fluid right out of my nose, and I had to get what's called an encephalocele. It takes some of your septum and patch the cracks. And I guess either not all the cracks were patched, or maybe it reopened, but I contracted meningitis, and I was put right back in the hospital. Nearly killed me. And I remember thinking in the hospital bed 2 weeks before Kilimanjaro, I'm thinking, am I going to get out of here in time to hit my mountain or what? But
and you couldn't hear, right? At that point, you lost all hearing.
I'd been pretty much out cold. I mean, my family said that I was awake, but I wasn't lucid enough. I mean, this bacteria was attacking my brain, and I was hallucinating. I wasn't lucid. I wasn't really there. So 4 days later, I kind of come out of this stupor and realize that my mom is by my side. My brand new girlfriend was by my side, which she had, in reality, in actual time, had left. She was living in Sacramento, and I live in Panhandle, Florida, and she had come out for a week-long first date 4 days ago. And we've known each other since childhood. She's my mom's goddaughter, but Michaela had just gone back. 4 days earlier, had gone back to California, and I wake up and she's right by my bedside, and I thought it was like 5 minutes, an hour later. I'm like, how the hell did you get here? It felt like my ears were like congested. I could hear something, but it was fuzzy and it was fading quickly. So when the doctor told me that, you know, the meningitis or the heavy doses of antibiotics were going to take what the bomb blast didn't of my hearing, my response was, what? No, I thought, my first thought, because I'm twisted, my first thought was, so what you're telling me is I'm never gonna have to pretend to pay attention ever again? Silver lining and everything. Uh, but the truth was, I mean, I've been hit to the mat again. And now I was going to be completely blind, completely deaf. There was some hope of restoring some of my hearing with the cochlear implants, which I'm using now, but it would take a long time. You know, I'd have to, I'd recover from the infection, and the infection would have to clear, and then they would do surgery on the more damaged ear because the blast kind of came from my right side. So I heard my hearing was much worse in my right ear. So they do the implant in the right ear. I have to wait for that to heal. Then you got to get these things tuned in, and your brain both has to learn how to listen this new way while you're tuning this thing up. So it's kind of like hitting a bullet with another bullet. And it takes, you know, every month I'd have to go back to audiology, get it tuned and tweaked as both my, you know, they're learning how I hear and my brain is learning how I hear. And it was 6 or 7 months before I could actually understand another human voice speaking to me. And
Wow.
even then it wasn't very good at all. So for 6 straight months, I was locked inside my body. I was trapped. My whole world ended at my fingertips. Michaela did not go back to Sacramento. She moved in. She had her friends transport her stuff from her apartment across the country for her, and she moved in. She nursed me back to health. The only way to communicate for half a year was she would write every letter of every word she had to say to me in the palm of my hand. And, I mean, it was tedious,
That is incredible.
frustrating to say the least, but it's amazing
That
what
is
this.
incredible.
Yeah, she is absolutely.
She's amazing. I don't even know her. I can just tell she's just an amazing human being. And I have to ask you, because this is to me where the value of what we do to strengthen our mind. When you talk about becoming a better version of yourself every day, and our listeners and you and me, is we know that that's the pathway. And when you're left with the ability you can't hear, you can't see, you even said it yourself, you're locked inside of your own thoughts. What was going on? To me, this is the most intriguing portion of what you've been through, because you can't, what human can duplicate that on a daily basis just to be like, oh, I'm going to subject myself to this. What's going on inside of your head, and how, like, what did you go through? What kept you strong in thinking forward? What did you really process, and what did you really get out of that experience that you can give other people? Because, essentially I feel like that's one of the worst places you could be, as far as like what could you receive from the outside to be able to help move you forward? It's just you. It's you and your thoughts and whatever Michaela was able to bring to you. So when it was just you, what really kept you moving forward?
Well, first, Michaela really, was my angel. I mean, she in more ways than one kept me alive when I was at my worst. I had a lot of time with my own thoughts and just my thoughts. All of the tools and techniques I'd learned to navigate my world as a blind person were essentially stripped from me. I've told you before recording that I've got all these talking tools from the computer, my phone. They all speak. They do the text to speech. I had a barcode scanner for the stuff in my pantry. audiobooks, podcasts. I keep connected to the world, and it's all audio based. The technology has come so far that I never bothered to learn Braille. And at that moment, I was thinking probably could have come in handy, but yeah, it was a long time to spend in my own thoughts. With the loss of my hearing, also lost that inner ear sense of balance, the vestibular balance. Now we get our sense of balance in 3 different ways: by touch, by visual context with our world, and that inner ear, that inside the head, feeling of balance. I'm already missing one, and then I lost another. So my only way to know if I was standing upright is touching something with the bottom of my feet, or contact with a countertop or something. So I couldn't even get on my treadmill and train like I used to. So, I mean, even all of those outlets, from losing myself in an audiobook to losing myself on a treadmill, I couldn't escape my own thoughts. And I'd begun when I started speaking after losing my sight. There was one metaphor I always come back to, and that was being an EOD team later. Every 3-person EOD team is given basically an entire shipping container full of tools, from the robots, the bomb suits, hazmat gear, power tools, you name it, just for one team. But there are hundreds of thousands, millions of different types of ordnance we know out in the world, out on the battlefield. And we were going to the places that many of them would be found. So we had to be prepared. We get to go like Iraq or something, and you get that armored truck, and you got to cram every box under the seats, shelves, everywhere, the back of the truck, to fit as many tools as you can, but you got to leave some behind. You can't fit the entire shipping container into your armored truck.
Yep. And
then, of course, you get to Afghanistan, where everything's like goat trails, and it doesn't support vehicle traffic at all. So now it's whatever you can fit in your rucksack. So I got to leave almost all of my tools behind, and we were doing our job with what we could carry on us. Basically, it turned out to be a couple, blocks of C4, a rope, carabiner, and our knives, which, of course, EOD guys are weird about their knives. We've got them all over the place. But that's it. Don't worry. And it's, I call it, I think about that and call it my tool, the tools I have in my kit. And I'm not worried about the tools I left behind, because they don't do me any good anymore. So I had to put, I've been preaching this for almost 4 years, and I was thinking about, and it comes back to, what would, when my son grows up, now my sons, what would they think about their dad if he just sat around worrying about the tools he left behind, what he doesn't have? And I had to put my money where my mouth was. I had to get up off that couch and not feel sorry for myself, and I had to assess the situation, figure out what tools I still did have and what skills I could work at. And I got off my butt, and I went back to the treadmill and held on to the stability bars with an iron grip, and I just turned it on. And when you hit start, it just goes to 0.5 mile an hour, and that's what I did. I walked, and I would have army cadences, which didn't work at a slow snail's pace walk, but I would just work, and I put myself into the activity, and I eventually got to the point where I could do a light jog. I would still felt like I was trying to throw myself right off the thing, but I was getting better. And it was around Thanksgiving time, which it really is my favorite time of the year. One, you get to it's just an excuse to gather all your favorite people around, your family and your friends, and celebrate what you have. celebrate what be grateful for what you do have. And second, you get to eat like a glutton. So it's awesome. But I was a cook, and we decided, Michaela and I decided that we were going to throw a feast, invite friends and family, and I was going to pour myself, both while I was on the treadmill and while I was cooking, I was just going to pour myself into a project, and it didn't afford me the time to worry about my situation. I was finding solutions instead of worrying about the problems. And I just started cooking. And weeks in advance, I was making all sorts of things. I started off with the desserts, which we keep in the freezer. And I was making cakes and pies and cookies, and I was doing batch of fudge after batch of fudge. And each time I would try new variations, and throw nuts and spices in there, go to the liquor cabinet and stuff like that. And I was just making all these different flavors of fudge, and I was having a good time. Michaela said that she saw something on me she hadn't seen in 6 months, and it was a smile. I was enjoying myself, so I was actually happy for a moment. Awesome. Of course, I was making far more fudge than anybody could, and Michaela started, I say, sneaking it out the front door to give it away to neighbors and friends. But you don't really have to be all that stealthy around a blind deaf guy. But she was just giving it away. After each time I'd make a new batch, she would just give it away, and people started coming back and asking for more. So I did what any blind deaf guy would do in this situation, and I started a chocolate company. People were asking if they could buy more of this, and I said, well, of course you may. And all of a sudden, Extraordinary Delights, or EODfudge.com, was born.
So incredible. It really is. And by the way, that's what I was excited to talk about, because I'm like, it's the holidays. Thanksgiving's coming up. Christmas is coming up. So I'm going to make sure that you say that again before we end, because I want people to go and experience this, because it's an incredible story and it's so cool. I'll be stocking up for sure. And it's really cool to see, what you've turned that into. And, when you start from a point where you are left with those thoughts, and I love talking about this, because I've been excited to hear about what was really going on in your head. And what I heard is that it's that legacy, when you really started to connect with, hey, I have 2 sons, or at the time when you had 1 son when it was happening. And how old's your second son?
Well, at the time, it was just my one son from a previous marriage. And I always measure myself by my level of, like I said, I'd evolved by then, and now it was my level of responsibility to others and my service to others. And I also thought that it was terrified me that I went from the provider, the protector, to possibly just for the rest of my life somebody else's burden. And that was a terrifying thought, as well as the thought of being stuck inside my body, but inside my house. Of course, those demons try to get in, the what ifs and the why me's. And I was thinking, when does one guy have his fair share? When has this soldier paid his due? And that's such a self-defeating thought. And I realized that I've been preaching this for years, and I knew that it was the wrong mindset. The military had taught me better, and I'd already experienced what it was to go through hardship, catastrophe, tragedy, and come out of it even better than before. And now I was facing it again, and it's similar to climbing those 3 peaks in one day. You get to the top of one peak and you're exhausted, but you're feeling triumphant, and then you look into the horizon and there's another peak, and you think, oh my gosh, this is going to be work. But there is no finish line, and hardships are going to come. So it was just me sifting through my thoughts and realizing this. And it might have taken a lot of time. And it might have taken the efforts of my mom and my dad and my my girlfriend at the time. And it was funny going back to the meningitis and being back in the hospital. There are definitely easier ways to get a second date, but in hindsight, well worth it.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did faith play a part at all when you were going through any of this, especially when you were kind of stuck in your own thoughts? Did you ever have faith as a part of this journey?
Yeah, I considered what kind of a burden I would be, not just in the most obvious sense, but I had responsibilities to my family, of course, most importantly to my son. I was his father. Who was going to teach him how to be a man? So instead of thinking about myself, I began thinking about him, and I began thinking about others. How I did not want to be a burden, how I didn't want to be an embarrassment to my son. Just sitting there sorry for myself, and people thinking, I wanted, instead of my son saying my dad is blind and deaf and letting this statement end there, I wanted my son to be able to say that my dad is blind and deaf and can still do anything. So that's awesome. Really the motivation was, that I still wanted to be, I wanted to be a father, and a husband and a son. I wanted to be a person that my family could be proud of. And
well, I think you're kicking ass right now, man. I'll tell you that right now. That's my feedback, is that you're absolutely crushing everything and doing that and leading, and it's inspiring in so many different ways. You've even inspired me, and we have to give a shout out to Alec too for First Class Fatherhood that you went on to make sure that we said thank you to him, because he linked us up, and I'm sure that you're doing great as a father, and it's been really cool to watch this journey. What I've heard from you is progression. You've progressed throughout this whole time. You've adapted. You found a way to live for something bigger. And also in the incident, when it actually happened to you, you were already thinking about others. You were like, well, I don't want my guys to come over here, so I need to move out of the way or walk back to the truck because I don't want them coming over here. In a moment of crisis or a critical thinking moment, you're thinking about your guys, and you're thinking about your family, and you're thinking about your sons now. And it's inspiring. And I really do think that it's awesome to see what you've done and the journey that you've been on. I've even learned from listening to you talk about that. And I think it's really cool, man. And you're definitely changing the world with those things. And I think what you've turned it into now, like I said before, is like extraordinary delights. So you have taken EOD, you have taken the word EOD and changed it into something beautiful. When I think of EOD, I absolutely revere and respect and am humbled by it. But now it's something that's fun. And I want people to be able to go to you and hopefully support your business and go check it out, because it looks amazing, and I'm really looking forward to doing it too. So, Aaron, I really appreciate it. We're at about the hour and a half mark, and I know that you're a busy guy now and you're living life to the absolute fullest. So is there any other comments that you wanted to make to our audience and what you've done and what you've seen?
Well, I just want to remind your listeners, anybody, that, no matter what we go through, there's, willpower, determination, basically grit. It will get you through just about anything, no matter how hard it is. having survived the blast and the meningitis, I was able to, after surviving the blast, I made my way to climbing those mountains and running the Boston Marathon. And then I got, nearly killed again. And a year later, I ran my hometown marathon, getting a PR on my 20th high school reunion, and qualified for Boston again. It's possible. Anything is possible, and it takes the work. Life is absolutely amazing, and we shouldn't squander it. And we need to get out there and just do the work.
Absolutely, man. That's beautiful. And you've been continuing to prove that. Life is amazing. Life has so many different opportunities. It can be done. You're inspiring people. And it's the holiday season, guys. So if you're listening to this today, you have got to go check out Aaron's business and what he's turned it into. Him and his wife have been changing and turning and adapting something where they could have let it hold him back in some sense, but that's not Aaron, and I've seen that from him. Where can they go to find these extraordinary delights, which are amazing, and they need to go check it out? Where can they find it?
Well, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at EOD Confections. And you can, of course, buy all of our treats at eodfudge.com, as well as inquire about speaking opportunities. Bring me to your organization.
Awesome. I love it. EODfudge.com. That's so cool, man. I'm glad that you guys have done that. And you got to give a special thank you to your wife, Michaela. And, from what I've seen, it's just thank you for the opportunity to have you on the show. Thank you to you guys for inspiring people and, also showing what a strong couple can accomplish, what you can accomplish when you put your mind to something, how anything is possible, and living a life to your fullest and getting better each and every day. Aaron, I thank you so much for being on here. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued inspiration. Keep going out there and crushing everything, man. I look forward to seeing you again, and keep taking care of those boys and leading that family, man. Thank you, and God bless you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Don, and thanks for your service.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you soon. Look forward to it. Take care.